This is a Stranger Than Fiction episode, so it's about stories that are far too unrealistic or far-fetched to be true. But I assure you, all the stories are true. There's 3 stories in this episode, and as we go on, they get more and more creepy. If you feel like you've seen a story, heard it before, or simply don't want to watch it, then if you check down on the bar just here, there is chapters, and that'll take you to the next story, or the 3rd story. This first story is quite a short story, but it's super creepy nonetheless. It's about Maddie. Maddie was a junior at the University of Carolina, and she was living off campus. Now, although this apartment's quite a nice apartment, she noticed that there were some things a bit weird. Mainly her clothes kept disappearing. Her pants, her tops, they just vanished. And I suppose that's quite normal. We've all had some pants that disappear or some socks or whatever. But Maddie noticed this quite a few times. And she even at one point noticed that there was an handprint on the bathroom wall that weren't her handprint. Anyway, Maddie came home one day, everything was normal. She got into the house, a couple of minutes later, she could hear some rattling in a closet. Now, in America, closets are quite often small rooms like walk-in cupboards. And at first she thought it might be a raccoon or some type of animal that had got in. But as she was listening to this rattling, it became quite clear that it was too heavy, it was too much to be an animal. So she ran over to the cupboard and held it shut, and she shouted, "Who's in there?" And much to Maddie's surprise, somebody responded. And this person responded, "Oh, hi, my name's Drew." So Maddie's quite confused and shocked at this moment, and she's holding the door, and she's got a smartwatch on, so she's trying to make an emergency call from a smartwatch because her phone's on the bed, but it weren't going through. This emergency call just weren't happening. And at this time, Drew's trying to open the door, and Maddie's like, "I'm not letting you out, are you crazy?" And he's like, "Look, I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. I just want to get out. I don't want to be in any trouble. Please just let me out." So Maddie's now got a choice to make. She can either hold the closet door shut and hope that someone comes by to help her, or she can let go and hope for the best. But this guy sounds quite nice, and he doesn't sound violent, he's not threatening her. So Maddie decides that the best thing she can do is step back and let him out. So she does. And this guy comes out, and to Maddie's shock, he's wearing all of her clothes. And I don't just mean he's got some of her clothes on like a dress. Oh no, he is head to toe in her clothes. He's even wearing her socks. That's to the extent of how much of the clothes he was wearing. And to top that off, he even had a bag that he'd filled full of her clothes. So Maddie phones her boyfriend, not quite sure what to do. And her boyfriend basically says, well, try and distract him, try and keep him there, make sure you're safe, and I'll be around as soon as possible. So Maddie's talking to him and stuff. And meanwhile, this guy's still being a bit weird. He's still trying her things on. He tries her out on, and he goes into the bathroom and checks himself out. And then he comes back out and he's, "Oh, you're really beautiful. Can I give you a hug?" At which point Maddie's like, "No, of course not." So her boyfriend turns up and this guy gets let out. And that's it. Luckily, no harm came to Maddie, and that's the end of the first story. Life weren't all that easy for Tracy and her family. She was a single mom of 5, and she was working as a nurse as well. Having been single for quite a while, it weren't all that easy to provide for a family, but she was doing a good job, and they were a normal, happy family, and they were getting by. But at this time of their lives, all were far from normal. For Tracy, there was something that just didn't quite feel right. She felt like she was being watched. She just felt like something weren't right around the house. And at this time, she's hearing a few noises upstairs and things, and they jokingly passed it off and said it must be a ghost. But these noises started to progress a bit more and got a bit louder, so she eventually sent her 2 eldest boys up into the loft to check it out. They had a look around, and they came back and said there's no up there, which then made a bit of joking, saying, "Oh, Mom, you're getting old, you're hearing things, you're going crazy," all the usual type of prodding and poking. But this weren't enough to appease Tracy. She still had a really uneasy feeling. She still felt like she was being watched, and she just weren't settling. But she kind of like put it to back her mind and thought, you know, it must be nothing, or it might be a ghost, we'll leave it be. Then, one Saturday night, she's laid on her bed, on a laptop, just chilling out, doing whatever she's doing, and then there's a big foot, and that drops down some plaster off the ceiling. So now she's like, what the hell? There's got to be something up there. So she decided what she was going to do is call animal control. They'd come out, have a look, find whatever animal were up there, and get rid of it. But the problem was it was Saturday night, so there was no chance of it happening until Monday. So Tracy was like, "No, it's fine, the boys have been up, there's no one up there, we'll just wait till Monday." However, later that night, she was awoken at 2:30 in the morning by a giant thud. So Tracy just laid there thinking, what the hell was that? Just trying to see if there's any more noises. And as she's laid there, there's some nails start flying off the ceiling. Ping, ping, ping. And she's like, what the hell? And she jokingly says after this that she thought it must have been a poltergeist or something. And I suppose that would explain why the boys didn't see anything when they went into the loft to check it out. But this was the last straw for Tracy, so she phoned up her nephew, said, come round here right now, you need to go into my loft, you need to find out what's going on. So her nephew comes round, he goes up into the loft, everything seems normal, but over in the far side, one of the lights have gone. And that's where the eating unit is, so he thinks, I'll just go over, check it out, make sure everything's alright, take a close look, make sure there's no animals around the eating unit or anything like that. So he heads over there. And as he gets down there, he notices all the coats and stuff that had been chucked up into the attic to be out of the way through the summer. They'd all been like stuffed in and around the eating unit. So he's getting a bit more suspicious. He gets to it. And there's a man inside all these blankets and stuff inside the eating unit, fast asleep. It turned out the man up there was Tracy's ex, but they've been broke up for over 12 years. Tracy broke it up after his drug addiction was causing problems and he was always getting in trouble with the law for theft and stuff. And at one point he even stole Tracy's car. And over all this time they had kept in contact. He'd even been round to their house a few years before to do some maintenance and stuff. But Tracy said it was completely clear, she made it abundantly clear the relationship was over. The only entrance to the attic was through the house on the corridor that connected the kids' bedrooms. There was a little loft hatch, so somehow we'd been getting into the house and creeping up into the loft. But he didn't have a key, and Tracy always made sure the windows and doors were locked because she was quite paranoid of someone breaking in. When the police arrived, the man had already escaped, leaving nothing behind other than a few cups full of urine and feces. But the police did confirm that Tracy's feeling of being watched wasn't just a feeling, she was actually being watched through one of the air vents in her bedroom. This story is next level crazy. He's just so far out there, it's unbelievable. Grady's a 9-year-old boy, and at this time of his life, he realizes if he can stay awake for long enough for his parents to fall asleep, then he can creep downstairs and help himself to whatever food he wants. He's got complete freedom, but he's also got the safety of being in his own home with his parents upstairs. So this is something that he started to do quite often. He'd wait for his parents to fall asleep and then creep downstairs and he'd help himself to whatever food he wanted. He used to have peanut butter, leftover pizza, he used to scrape the icing from top of birthday cakes and stuff. Just all like kids, just being kids, pigging out eating food. Then this one night, Grady's parents had ordered from the fish and shrimp house. So Grady was super excited at bedtime because he knew his parents were going to fall asleep soon and then he could sneak downstairs and help himself to some sweet and sour pork. So that's exactly what he did. His parents fell asleep and he very slowly, very quietly creeped downstairs, avoiding all the cracks. And then he finally got down into the den and it felt like it took him forever, slowly walking downstairs. But he got in there and it was super dark, but he didn't care. He knew he was safe. And his eyes were on the sweet and sour pork. So now he starts to let his guard down. And just as he does, he hears like the clink of a fork onto the kitchen counter. So at this point, Grady freezes. His game's over, he's been caught. So the best thing for him to do is freeze, and it's that dark, hopefully they won't see him and he can creep back upstairs. But as he looks over to the kitchen where the sound came from, he can see the light from the microwave, you know, the digital clocks. And that's lighting up just enough to reveal the silhouette of this guy stood in the kitchen. And this guy's eating the leftover food, he's drinking from a milk carton. And Grady's like, that's not my dad, who the hell is this man? So as this 9-year-old boy stood watching this, someone in his house while his mom and dad are asleep, he very slowly starts to creep backwards. He creeps upstairs, he goes into his mom and dad's bedroom, like, Mom, Dad, wake up, there's someone in his house. So his mom and dad get up, they run downstairs, and there's no one there. So Grady's not in best of books at this moment. His mom and dad have just been woke up in the middle of the night, and it turns out there's a completely false alarm. But Grady was quite suspicious. He knew he'd seen something. He was fully aware there was someone in that kitchen. He weren't making it up. His parents were just passing it off. Oh, you read too many horror comic books and it's all in your head. So they go back to bed. Grady gets sent back to bed. Goes to because now he ain't got his sweet and sour pork, I presume. He just laid there and he decides from now on, every time he goes to bed, he's going to take stock of what's in the kitchen. He's going to make a mental note of where everything is. And the next morning, he's going to check. So Grady continued to do this, And over time, things did start to move. The napkin holder, for example, that had been on one side of the kitchen, and then the next morning, it was in a different place. One time there were mugs that were there that weren't there the night before. So Grady just knew there was something going on. There was someone in his house, or at least that's what he thought. But I mean, let's be realistic, it could have been his parents coming down and grabbing a drink or anything really. But Grady were absolutely petrified. That petrified, in fact, that he started taking a kitchen knife to bed. He had a kitchen knife under his pillow, and he quite often cut his hands by, every time he got in bed, he'd feel if his knife was still there to make sure it were. And by that, he'd end up stabbing himself or whatnot. He never got any serious cuts from this though. 3 or 4 months later, he's still taking stock of everything and he's still noticing things disappearing. But no one quite believes him, so at this point he stopped telling people. And he's laid on his bed this one day and he's reading his horror comic books and something catches his eye. So he looks up at the air vent in the corner of his room and there's a pair of eyes watching him. So he runs into his mom and dad. He's like, "Mom, Dad, there's someone in my air vent. There's someone in my air vent." So obviously they had no other choice. They had to go up into the air vents in the attic and check it out. There was no one there. They went into the crawl space under the house and yet no one there. So obviously he's not in the best of books again. His parents are like, "Right, you need to stop reading these horror comic books because this is going absolutely crazy." Another week or so passes. And at this time, the activities start to die down a bit. He's not noticing as much and things are just starting to be a bit more normal and there's no activity. And then as he's laid on his bed again, reading his horror comic books, he notices a piece of rice falls out of the air duct. So he goes out to have a look at it, and in closer inspection, it's actually a maggot. It's like, what the hell? So he goes and tells his mom and dad, and his mom and dad come and look. Now it's undeniable, they've seen a maggot. He says it fell from the air duct. So they phone animal control. And animal control's like, "Yeah, sure, this happens all the time. An animal have got into your house, they've got stuck in the air vent. We'll come and sort it out. We'll remove it for you, all will be well." So obviously, animal control arrives. They go up into the loft, into the attic space. They remove the air duct vent, and they see this dead man. The house they were living in at the time were quite old, so it had big gaps between the walls, and the air ducts were big. And this guy had been living up there for at least 4 months, to the extent it even got a foam padding that he could lay on at the side of Grady's air vent, watching him through the vent. The boy in this story is the horror author Grady Hendrix, and he claimed that the police once mentioned that there were loads of drawings as well, but when Grady asked about the drawings, the police said, "We ain't got a clue what you're on about." And he also confirmed that the man had never been named. He was buried under the name of John Doe. That's all for today's show, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please put a thumbs up. Please press the subscribe button. It doesn't matter if you're watching on YouTube or podcast, I massively appreciate you. YouTube has just surpassed 100 subscribers, and I am so grateful for every single one of you. Till next week, guys.